Welcome to Fresh Corduroy. Today's episode goes behind the finish line and into the reality of European ski racing. My guest is Elsa Powell, creator of the YouTube channel Fall Liners, a project she launched in August of 2024 to document the unfiltered journey of British athletes chasing Europa Cup starts and Olympic dreams. Elsa grew up skiing in Austria and raced herself before stepping away from competition. Seeing the lack of media attention and funding support within British ski racing, she decided not to leave the sport, but to document it. What started by following David Christie evolved to include Molly Butler and Carrick-Smith, young athletes competing at the Europa Cup level and pushing toward World Cup starts. Fall Liners breaks down fist points, funding realities, travel across Europe, and the emotional volatility of a sport where progress isn't always linear. If you enjoy this episode, follow Fresh Corduroy on your podcast platform of choice and share it with someone who cares about ski racing or the journey behind high-performance sport. Now, let's get some Fresh Corduroy with Elsa Powell. Elsa, welcome to Fresh Corduroy.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Before we get into all things Fall Liners, I want to hear about your ski origin story. Where and when did you get started skiing?
So I first got started skiing, I think when I was about 6 or 7. My auntie lives in a place in Austria called Searle, and we used to go out maybe like once a year and go and head out and that's where we learned to ski. And actually, to be honest, the first time I went skiing, I absolutely hated it. I thought it was like the worst thing in the world. I was cold, I was hungry. I was at ski school, was without my parents, with like Austrian. I remember thinking, what is this? I'm thrown into this extreme sport on a mountain, very overwhelmed. So actually, for the first 2 years, I was kind of like, not sure about this sport. And then I think when I got to about 8 or 9, it clicked in my head and I was like, oh, this is like the best thing in the world. And all I wanted to do was go fast. I didn't care about technique. So I was quite bad at ski school. Like the ski school, instructor would be teaching the group and he would go, where's Elsa? And I'd be at the bottom because I would just straight line it down. So I wasn't the best pupil when it came to ski school because all I wanted to do was go fast. But yeah, that's kind of where it started in Austria. Oh my God, like 20 years ago, I guess now.
We won't have to date ourselves because I would be talking about multiple decades ago. That's great. So for the audience, for me and for the audience, why don't you describe what Fall Liners is? I've been watching your YouTube channel for more than a year now, probably, and I enjoy it. But for the uninitiated, what is Fall Liners?
Yeah, good question. So I guess, Fall Liners was created by myself in August 2024, so over a year and a half ago now. Well, I was an Alpine ski racer myself, and once I stopped ski racing, I was kind of like, I was going to kind of move away from the sport completely, actually. I was kind of like, right, that's the end of that book, move on to something else. And then, there's a couple of things within GB ski racing. There's not a lot of like media attention, there's no funding. People struggle to kind of get to that next level because there's not like a grassroots support or funding like other nations have. So I took the whole summer and I was thinking, like, how can I, with what knowledge I have, and kind of help this from like a point of view of someone who knows so much about this niche sport? And then, I thought about it. I thought actually it'd be really cool to just, with social media world, to show loads of behind the scenes of some athletes. So David, who's my boyfriend, I was like, oh, should we try this? Should we try and show behind the scenes of your training, your racing, and kind of document it over the season and what level you get to? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And then I also wanted to get a women's perspective, being a woman in sport myself, and bringing more media to women in sport. So I reached out to Molly Butler, who I knew at the time. I definitely knew quite well. We did I think we did one indoor camp together, but with different coaches. So I kind of knew of her, and I reached out and I said, Molly, look, are you interested in this? And immediately she was like, absolutely, let's do it. So from August, we started we went to Pier in Belgium to an indoor ski slope, and we just documented it. I just showed a day-to-day life of racing, kind of the real side of it. So I guess Fall Liners in a nutshell is GB athletes behind the scenes, showing what really goes into it and the amount of dedication and effort and ski prep and fitness and travel and lack of funding, and kind of showing the ups and downs, the ins and outs. And also through Fall Liners and through the videos, I try and break down, like, if you know anything about ski racing, it's a niche sport, and there's so many weird complex things like fizz points, different waxes, different angles that you edge your skis. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So I think when it comes to kind of getting interested in sport, I think a main thing is for people to get interested, they want to know the people behind the sport. So I think that really helps. And then also understanding how the sport works and all the niche things through the YouTube channel. If you watch, Alpine skiing, the World Cup on the TV, hopefully it'll give you a better idea of kind of what's happening and get more into it. But yeah, it was basically kind of, I created it to bring more awareness to these amazing athletes, and try and bring some more sponsorship and funding to their journey.
So what you describe for British ski racing is in a weird way similar to U.S. ski racing in that there's no government support, right? It's all either through sponsorships, which the U.S. team has a number of, like Dunkin' Donuts or
Right.
iCapital, which is a fintech company, like big companies supporting them, and a lot of grassroots donation. Is that similar for GB? What is it? GB Sport or GB Skiing? I mean, I don't know the.
I guess it's called GB Snow Sport. I guess the governing body. I don't know so much about this because it doesn't actually affect us in terms of, like, Molly doesn't get so many sponsorships through it, so it's not something we talk about. But I think there's a lot of external sponsorships, especially for the World Cup guys like Billy Laurie or Dave, who's now retired. But they had, I don't know, different Tenzing, I think is one of their sponsors. There's Quinn Estates, which is like an real estate thing. So there's like external sponsors that actually basically fund the whole thing. Yeah, that's how they mostly do it in the World Cup. But in terms of the lower levels like Europa Cup and Fizz, there isn't so much of that kind of grassroots support. It's like once you get to World Cup, there might be some, but you've kind of got to find your own. Even up to Europa Cup, you've got to be emailing, doing your meetings, and trying to find your own sponsors.
Yeah, and with respect to Fall Liners, I'll ask, at a point, is it successful in the sense of have you brought, what is the impact? But first, I guess the thing that's notable to me, and I still enjoy the channel a lot, it's you're teaching, basically, you're educating the audience on all of those oddities of ski racing. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you talked about fist points, you haven't put the formulas up on the screen yet, but
I don't know if I ever will.
You're really educating and I'll call it the novice, people who aren't familiar with ski racing, and like what is your thought process about being being attractive to that kind of an audience versus the people that are in the know and sort of talking. We would call it inside baseball. I don't know what the British equivalent to that saying is, but you really have to be in the weeds in order to like understand what you're talking about. You made a conscious decision, I presume, maybe you didn't, about how to approach the subject and the topic and then present it to the audience.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I think, that's kind of the reason I started it. Was the main goal was to get people who knew nothing about the sport interested or even never skied. They just like sport. And I think doing that, I think the conscious decision at the start was like, right, the only way to get them interested is really breaking it down. Because, you could make a series for ski races where I do none of the explanation and someone goes, I'm 2/10 off, so I'm going to have 10 points worse. And my points, blah, 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 and talk about not qualifying for this or that and making minimum. So like saying making minimum at Fizz race and NC, to us, you go, oh yeah, obviously that's 23 or whatever. To someone else, it's like, what the heck is that? So I thought, if we actually want to, because the main goal is to kind of broaden the audience and bring in more eyes, which bring in more sponsorship, which bring funding to get them to the higher level. So I thought I feel like the only way to do this is to really break it all down and make it make sense to people who don't know. And my favourite comments is when people say, like, I've never been skiing in my life, and now I love watching this. That's okay, that's the market I'm trying to get involved, because it's so niche. I think we just need to bring all sport lovers involved. So yeah, it was definitely a conscious decision to try and educate with it.
And what is it like? You talk about British ski racing. You're effectively doing that on foreign soil. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know of any or many FIS races in the Scottish Highlands, right? Like to my knowledge, you're doing it. It's a bunch of Brits who are traveling continental Europe and racing. Talk about a niche community. What is that like, and how does that fit into the bigger ski racing community within Europe?
Yeah, that's a good question. There was FIS races in Scotland ages ago. I remember David did one. I think the last one they ran was in 2018, and they ran it at the end of April, which I don't even know how they did it, but it was done. So there used to be FIS races there. I mean, there hasn't been in the last 8 years, so I don't really know what they're gonna. But there is a Scottish champs. But yeah, I guess being from a place with no mountains and kind of being in a foreign country the whole time, there's pros and cons to it, because like a lot of other nations, obviously they go home and they're with their families and their friends and their normal environment, but for a lot of GB athletes it's like you've got maybe a small apartment in a city or village you don't know anybody, you probably don't really know the language, or like bonjour, merci, and that's kind of it. So there's a lot of it you kind of feel a little bit like an outsider, so I guess you don't have that kind of community, or you create a community, and because there's no like GB team, it's like everyone kind of trains individually. It's like either you're in an academy or you have a private coach. There's no kind of setup to bring you through, so it's not like you do camps with 10 athletes. Sometimes you're doing camps with 3 that you've skied for 10 years, so there's definitely a different thing and different things you miss out on, and obviously you can't train just like 20 minutes from your house. You have to travel on a plane, all the above. So yeah, I guess it has advantages and disadvantages, but it's cool to live in a different country. But like the qualifications and stuff for like the Olympics, I think we're kind of like GB's kind of got the same standard as like Austria and France and all these other countries that actually qualify to get in, even though we're from a country with no mountains, which I've always found interesting, because if you're from, I can't think of a country that doesn't really ski, Thailand for example, you will have a lower entry point to the Olympics, but GB's like, no, you're going to have to get whatever these points. So yeah,
it's different. I had at the beginning of this season Shannon Abada, who grew up outside of Calgary, Canada, so in the mountains, but he skis for Etrea. He's the one and only Winter Olympian Etrea has ever had at the Olympics, and this was his 3rd Olympics, and he just went to. And yeah, for the uninitiated, there are different point cutoffs, and each national governing body has different standards as far as nominating to go to the Olympics. There's the Olympic cutoffs, and then each nation has their own, and they can be more stringent.
Definitely.
So, for instance, I joked with my son, he had met the Olympic criteria, but there was, as a U.S. athlete, nowhere near, right? So
the U.S. is definitely different.
Okay, so that's the British or GB contingent in Europe is dispersed, right? There's no group. You're kind of, some are in France, some might be in Italy, some might be in Austria, etc. And you're, I was going to say a bunch of vagabonds. I don't know if that's an okay word, but basically you have suitcase will travel, traveling around continental Europe to various ski races. And I imagine some of you, do you have a place where you call home for the winter season?
Yeah, most people do. Most people have a base. I guess that's what they would kind of refer to it as. So like the race academies, they'll have a base. And most of the GB race academies are based in Austria. That's kind of where they've settled. I think it's where they get better lanes. Austria, obviously, it's their nation sport, so it's supported more and it's more encouraged. So a lot of people have bases in Austria. But yeah, most athletes will have a base. And then they normally, a weekly schedule. When I was racing, is like you do, 4 or 5 days training throughout the week, and then the weekend would be a race, which could be, anywhere. Like you could be traveling to Italy, Slovenia, Slovakia, wherever. You're driving left, right, and centre. But yeah, you always come back to a base, which I think is necessary. I think if you were just in and out of a suitcase the whole 6-month season, I think it would feel, disjointed. I think you would start feeling unsettled. I think you need that familiarity to kind of go back to and reset and rest.
Right. obviously you're along for the ride in the sense that you are documenting this travel, and that comes across to the van rides and packing up the van and unpacking the van,
Yeah,
etc.
a lot of that.
Yeah, so it's not just on the slopes; it's the whole experience. And how is that experience portrayed? Like, what are the has it been the unvarnished truth, or is there some perhaps less glamorous or less eventful things that don't make
The cut.
the cut exactly?
In terms of travel, I think it's hard because a lot of the time, especially this season, like David's starting to do more ski cross, so I'm focusing more on Molly, and Zach Carrick-Smith has also joined the season. They're based in Austria, and I'm based in France, so there's like an 8-hour drive between us. So I actually think with them, the reason less travel is filmed is because half the time I'm travelling to them and I arrive and we're already at the place. But in terms of what we show, and is it 100% true, it is. Like, barely any of it's staged. I try and turn the camera on as sneakily as I can. I don't know if that's the right word. Not in like I don't know what the word would be, against their like privacy, but like let's say they're packing a van, I'm not like, right, so you stand here and you pack your skis there. It's very much me. Half the time I feel like I'm running after them because they're just living their life, and I'm just literally there with the camera. I'm always feel like I'm 2 steps behind because I nearly miss it, or they have a conversation and I think, oh my god, that was really good, but I don't want to go, guys, can we all say that again? Because I want it to be natural, and that's the big thing. It's like I just want it to be completely, sometimes, I mean, the only things I ever say is like, oh, when they do inspection before a race, I go, what did you see in inspection? That's kind of, I give them prompts, but in terms of stories or natural conversations, I just let that go. And we show, to be honest, like 95% of the stuff that happens in the truth, especially this season with Molly as well, trying to focus on like showing the ups and downs, which is so important in sport. And I think trying to like make it glamorous and amazing and the best thing in the world, it's just not the truth. Like, if you're doing sport to a high level, it is so hard, and there's so many, I mean, to be honest, not to be negative, but there's almost more down days than up days, which makes the up days incredible. But it's to show those down days, and to, athletes who are 13, 14 who might watch would see that and think, okay, that's all right, I can work through that, rather than being completely disheartened and maybe stopping the sport entirely because they just think that's part of the journey.
Yeah. I guess let me pull on that thread for a moment. You left ski racing and now you're documenting it. You watch David first. Well, I'll call it the David Christie era, and now the Molly and Zach era, or combined. And you see the ups and downs as an outsider. What I think we talk about this a lot in with respect to ski racing. It is a super hard sport. At the end of the day, it's a race. There's only one winner. There's going to be 139 if they fill the field.
Yeah.
Losers. You have to find joy in the progress and in the journey, as opposed to individual events or moments. How do you see that? Just as someone who experienced it at one point in their life, and how do you put aside the camera, help David or Molly or Zach get through those ups and downs, and then also how do you want to document those things?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think the thing that I've actually found, especially the most interesting, especially in the first year that I started it, was how much of a, almost not a coach, but someone to vent at when you've had a bad day or you've had a bad run. Like, I didn't, in my head I was like, I'll just be filming and that'll be it. But actually the amount of times I've sat with Molly for 45 minutes after a race and we just like talk through what's happened, why she's upset, why is it hard, things she's actually done that's incredible, and you need to believe in yourself. So I think a massive part of it, and a really enjoyable part of it, is actually I'm almost, part of the team in a way I didn't think I would be so emotionally involved, I guess would probably be the way to say it. And in terms of like filming those moments and being an athlete, so yeah, I think being an athlete from before gives me, I kind of know when to film, when not to film. Like, even in inspection, if you never raced, I think you could get it wrong. You could get in the way, you could stand in front of a gate, blind rolls. So it's like knowing, I think having that insight from before really helps me in terms of like, okay, remember when you were racing, if you were in the start and there was 10 bibs before you went, would you want a camera in your face? So it's knowing all those little things. I go, okay, right, Molly's in 20, I'm now going to step back. Okay, Molly's coming down the hill, I always try and kind of hide behind coaches. Even though it's not maybe always the best shot, it doesn't matter, because I always say to Molly mostly, she's done it for the longest, but I always say, like, I'm the side quest. Fall liners is your side quest. Your main quest is ski racing. My main quest is fall liners. So don't ever think, oh, I need to do this for the camera. I need to say this for the camera. Never. Because you need to do this journey. I'm literally just here to press stop and press go. And then I think the hard part I find is when it's been a hard day, and they might have had a run. Like Molly had one this season where she was winning first run and then I think went into fifth. And she was at the bottom of the slope, sitting by her skis. And it was a great moment to film, for example. It's a great moment. I thought, okay, this really shows what ski racing's about. Yeah, it's a bit of a dilemma in the sense of this would be great for the episode and kind of the storyline, but at the same time, like, you need to put the person first. I never want to cross that line because I want to keep a really healthy relationship, especially, I mean, a long-term goal would be to follow, Molly and Zach to the Olympics. So it's like you want to keep, that respect and realise they're a person who needs to feel their feelings. So sometimes I film, sometimes I will film it, and I will film a moment or a conversation me and Molly have, and then when I'm editing it, I just think, I'm not sure, feels a bit too much. And before I ever put out an episode, I send it to, Molly, Zach, or David, and I go, tell me what you think, anything you want to take out, I will. Because I think we just need to be that honest with each other, because then I think otherwise you can create a relationship that's a bit hostile, and you might see me and think, oh God, no, she's going to put up that video of me crying. So I think, yeah, being an athlete before has really helped me document it. I think it gives me that inside knowledge.
It's interesting you say that, and clearly you're considering this different than, say, a news journalist. We're recording this after the Olympics.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ski racing incidents that were caught on camera, whether it's Otley McGrath, hooking, straddling a gate in the second run after winning the first run and then walking off into the woods and sitting under a tree, or Lena Dore straddling the very first gate in her second run after being in second place. Obviously the Olympics brings a certain level of stress and pressure that doesn't seem to be mimicked anywhere else. But clearly what I'm talking about is the documentation of these upsetting events and the athlete's reaction to them. And I think that's what you're describing, which is, Molly winning the first run and then not having a good second run, and documenting that the reaction and the feelings, and having some you obviously sensitivity of whether or not you want to document that or not.
Yeah.
Whereas the Olympics, right, it's a harsh glare.
They show it all.
It sounds like you're not thinking of this purely in a journalist's, this is the facts. I'm just here to record the facts and report them.
Yeah. I think it's such a fine line. It's such a fine line of what you can and can't kind of push. And I think almost if I was a journalist at the Olympics and I didn't have that personal relationship with the athletes, I think it makes it easier, because you just think, oh, I need to capture this for this production studio or this news thing or whatever. But for me, and doing it now for a year and a half, I really know the athletes, and there's a respect for it and for the sport. But it's such a fine line, and that's the biggest thing. And when it's happening in that moment, so when Molly's sitting on the side of the piste, 100 meters down from the finish with the skis, and it's a great shot, I have 30 seconds to decide in my head, oh, is this worth me recording? Is it a bit too far? If I don't do this right now, I'm going to miss the moment and it's going to gone. And even in an hour's time, if we go, Molly, let's reflect on that, you're going to probably look at it through rose-tinted glasses. You're going to put a bit more of a positive spin, whereas you've got to have that honest truth. Then, a lot of the time I'll talk to Molly and I'll be filming as kind of discreetly as I can. And then, send her the clip afterwards and say, what do you think? If you want to put this out, we can. I think it's good and honest. But if you think that's too much and too vulnerable, we're not doing it. Because in the end, it's their story. And I think you've got to respect kind of what they want and don't want being shown.
Yeah, so let's talk. So coming back to, which I talked about the David Christie era of the show.
Yeah.
You started with him. You mentioned he's your boyfriend. He, is racing in various FIS races around Europe. Chasing points. What was his mission, and how are you documenting his quest in terms of ski racing to start?
Yeah, so I guess David had a bit of he's kind of was doing a different journey than some other athletes. Like Molly and Zach, they kind of grew up in France and they were ski racing since the age of, I don't know, probably like 5 or 6. So it's kind of, they have a different kind of timeline of achievements and goals because they had more skiing when they were younger. But for David, he's Scottish. He did do a little bit of skiing more in France when he was younger, but from the age of, 12, he was at normal school and would go out for maybe a week or two. So I guess a lot of GB athletes, you kind of have to look at the progress a bit differently. Like Dave Riding, for example, he did great things, but he was older, and that's purely just because time and experience on snow. So I think when starting with David, I think the thing that we wanted to show is like, yeah, you can be, I guess David would have been 24 at the time when we started. You can be on 40 points at 24 from GB, and, and there's still chances that you can do great things. So I guess for the first season, David's goal was to make the Europa Cup team, which at the time was, I think it was 33 or 30, I can't remember what it was now actually. 30 points, I think, the Europa Cup team was. And the year we started, so it was 30 points to qualify for the Europa Cup team, and it was one top 60 in a Europa Cup to even get into the Europa Cup team. So we knew they were the two things we need to hit. So we kind of, through the first year, if you go back and watch, we kind of documented that journey and trying to get the points and really focusing on points, whereas seasons before, you don't always focus on points. So it was like we had a big point goal for him, and then he got down, I think, to 33 by about February, which was brilliant. He was 3 points off, and we emailed GB and said, can David do Europa Cup? They said yes, he can. So at that point, the Europa Cup, if you watch the videos, there was, the goal, to be honest, was to make the top 60 finish. That was it. It wasn't really to perform. And I know that sounds strange, but when you just want to make a Europa Cup team and kind of progress in that way, it's like, that's kind of what he was going for. So he actually got a top 60 finish. So then at that point, he had 50% of the qualifications to make the Europa Cup team. But yeah, he didn't get the points in the end. So that we kind of documented that journey and the honest truth behind it. And I think people like David, but well, he's Scottish, he's honest, he's quite a quiet man in ways. Has become much more like through talk to the camera and stuff, a lot different. But I think he showed a different side of ski racing that isn't, I guess, the conventional route.
Yeah, it's different. I think obviously the GB angle of having to compete again in different countries and sort of chase after these qualifications makes it unique to, say, the US system, which there's kind of a natural progression, right? It's you're racing, entry level or development, FIS races, and then open FIS races, and then depending on the region, there's what we call the Eastern Cup Series, which is sort of the tier below the NORAMs, which is our Continental Cup versus Europa Cup, NORAMs, et cetera. And then, hopefully you do well there and you qualify for the US team and get support, et cetera. Yeah. And there's a very clear, like, if you're this old, your world ranking needs to be X. And, very, very structured. They've tried to make it much more objective because I think the criticism of the U.S. ski team in years past was there was a lot of subjectivity, and if you knew if you were buddies with the coaching teams, you might get the nod, whereas somebody else who's training somewhere else may not. It sounds like GB is in some ways very objective criteria, right? 30 at the time, it was 30 points and a top 60 in a Europa Cup.
Yeah, I guess, but it's quite similar in some ways. Like if you do know the people who are selecting, and you might be 2-3 points, between you and someone who could make it, you might be picked as well. So even though that was also the kind of thing, it's like even though GB said this is the criteria, if David actually got it, we weren't even sure they would actually pick him, even though that's technically what you need. They don't actually have to it's not like you make it and they go, okay, 100% you're on. So they definitely have that. And then, if you know the people who are selecting, they might be your coach, you might have trained, you might have, done something well at the British Championships. you might be selected based on just knowing as well. So I think that's probably a thing in most things in life. What do they say? It's who you know. Well, I can't remember what that saying is.
Yeah,
But
it's who you know, not what you know.
yeah, but there's an element. Obviously, if you smashed it out the water and you got to 20 points, I mean, there's no arguing you should be on the team. But if there's 2 or 3 between you and someone who knows the guy, probably pick him.
Yeah. And so, not to spoil, no, actually, I won't do any, plot spoilers. So, we'll talk about the addition of Molly, which happened early. I would say she made cameo appearances early on, and now is much more of a focus of episodes. So, you talked about how Molly started participating, and you now have Zach Carrick-Smith on as well. Talk about how you approached the two of them or brought both of them into the fold, if you will, and have been focusing more on their journey and less on David. So we could talk about ski cross in a moment, though.
Yeah, the ski cross. Yeah, so I guess with Molly, I reached out to her right at the beginning in August 2024, and I said, do you want to be part of this thing? I had a Zoom call with her and her mum, and we knew of each other, but not really. She was just all for it. And then it was funny going to Pier. So we went to Pier in August. I did a couple episodes with her. I remember thinking, we literally barely spoke. I was literally hi Molly. Maybe spoke for 10 minutes and I got a camera out. So it was quite funny, not really knowing this person, then all of a sudden, documenting behind the scenes of this person where you don't really know what they're training. Whereas David, I knew I knew exactly what he was working on. I knew him for at least 5 years at this point. So it was a whole different kind of kettle of fish. And then knowing how much to push it. And to be honest, when we first started, I went into it so blindly, as in I didn't prepare. It was literally 2 weeks before. I was I think I'm going to do this actually. Used an old camera, didn't have a mic, and just went to Pier. I remember even waking up that morning thinking, I haven't thought about this. I'm now just it was almost like I was just on wheels and I was just doing it. But yeah, I got Molly involved, and then didn't do loads with her pre-season. She was in different places and I was mostly with David, so we did I think maybe 2 episodes at the start, and then there was about 2 or 3 month kind of break where it was just mostly David. Last season was mostly David, and then in December we did a couple, and then February last year we went to World Champs, which was a really cool event in Salbach to kind of show, and that was kind of when Molly really, she was in it the whole time, but it was definitely more of a David kind of heavy situation, especially on Instagram and stuff. I looked through last year and it was just mostly him, just because I didn't film as much with Molly. But then we went to World Champs together. I documented that whole week, which was such a cool experience for both of us. I mean, Molly, she did really well in the GS, had a harder day in the slalom. I arrived, didn't have a media pass or whatever, so I was befriending the security guards to get better access for the filming. I was climbing over barriers and stands, and I would spend 5 minutes convincing an Austrian security guard to let me through to the media bit. And he would be going, no, you can't, you don't have the pass. And I was just please, I have one athlete. I'm trying to film this and document this thing. Please let me in. And they actually did. Talking to people worked. So I did that on the first day, and then every day I would come back and they remember me. And I'd have my camera and I'd go, you remember me? I need to film my athlete. So I'd run in, film. And they would literally, as soon as Molly came through the finish, the security guard would point at me and be out. So I had 10 minutes where I was allowed in this little area. So that was a really, really cool event to film, and those videos did really well, obviously, because it's such a big event, and Molly was 18 at the time, and she did well. And then I would say after World Champs, I definitely did 50-50 David and Molly. I filmed some more race with Molly, and then British Championships in April, I filmed both their kind of journeys. And that's how Molly kind of got involved, and obviously wanted to show women in sport. That was the main thing for me, to show that kind of side of it. And then starting this season, I actually started Full Liners season 2, I guess you could call it, with Molly in Saas Fee. That's how we kicked it off. So Molly, then it's since probably February, it was definitely 50% Molly, 50% David. And then even starting this season, David was kind of going umming and ahhing about stopping ski racing, and I was whatever you want to do, but obviously if you want to, we'll keep documenting it, if not, whatever. And he was unsure, and actually he said, okay, I'm going to do a whole season of ski racing. So I was great, we're going to have the same storyline. People really enjoyed David's story. We're going to have Molly, and then I was thinking in the summer of adding Zach, because Zach kind of showed some interest, and if you know the Carrick-Smiths, they're pretty good. Luca, Freddie, and Zach. I think they're, I don't know, in the top three in their age. Freddie won a Europa Cup this year, so yeah, they're on their way to do some pretty amazing things. So I was like, it'd be great to get one of them on board to kind of document their thing. So I must have reached out to Zach. Well, he kind of knew it because Molly and Zach trained together.
Right.
So yeah, he was kind of part of that.
So again, for people who, I know the majority of my audience is in the U.S. I have a large contingent in Canada, although I do have a number of European listeners.
Yeah.
Molly Butler, Zach Carrick-Smith are not household names yet,
I'm sure
at least. For the audience, Molly is I think they're both on, and Zach on Team GB officially, and they race Europa Cup / other national championship type the tier right below Continental Cup races. It's sort of a mix between Continental Cups and open fist races. Basically, is that kind of where they're at, and describe their level, and obviously they have pretty lofty expectation or goals, I should say.
Yeah. So they're both 19, and they're on the Europa Cup team. This whole season, Molly's done a lot of the Europa Cups, but then they do the NCs and other kind of continental cups. We went to South Korea recently as well, and did the Far East Cup, which is a similar level to Europa Cup, but just a small amount of people. But both on the GB team, and they're kind of, Molly for women is probably one of the prospects for the next Olympics. She's young, she's really good, she's doing very well every season. And then the Carrick-Smiths and Zach. They're also doing really. So Zach's also done Europa Cups this year, and then I think he's also potentially doing some World Cups because Luca, his older brother, is on the World Cup circuit, and Freddie won a Europa Cup and is done a couple of World Cup GSs. So they're all kind of on the brink of kind of starting to do World Cups, and I think Molly next season definitely will maybe do some World Cups, and same with Zach. So they're definitely on that kind of level of kind of teetering on that, but Europa Cup is so difficult. If you know about it, it's just like so competitive. Everyone's in fine margins. I think it's brutal. It's a brutal one, Europa Cup.
Yeah, I've talked with a number of U.S. athletes. I'm thinking of one in particular, Annika Hunt, who I've had on twice, and she made her first World Cup starts this season.
Nice.
And had won the NORAM overall title last year, and also won the downhill and Super G titles.
Wow.
So she did relatively well.
Pretty good.
And obviously she has raced Europa Cup. She kind of talked about the differences in Europa Cup versus NORAM. And I imagine it's the same in the Far East, where the depth of field at a Europa Cup, the entire field is stacked, right? You have, it's not quite that way at these other Continental Cup races. How are you documenting that? I've watched a couple of the Korean episodes. I don't think you can tell that the level drops off, right? If it, and I recognize some of the names of on the start list, like the Czech woman who won the race in the Far East, because I've seen her in races here in the U.S. Like, you kind of know who these players are. Again, if you are an insider, but how do you document that and tell that part of the story, and or not?
Yeah, that bit. I found that kind of difficult because it almost feels like that's the nichest thing in the world, talking about the difference between like a Europa Cup and a Far East Cup. Like, you really have to know the sport to kind of like even be interested in those differences. So it gets to some points when I'm describing things where I think, is this actually worth it? Will people find that interesting? Is it almost too far in the description of kind of what it is? But in, I think it must have been the third Korean episode I put out with Molly, I tried to explain at one point like the start list and how like the point system works. So like on the Far East, it's similar to Europa Cup, that is done off Far East Cup points, not fizz points. So even though Molly has lower fizz points than a lot of the girls above her, because she hasn't done the whole circuit, means that she's got low Far East Cup points. I think that also the hardest thing is you want low Far East Cup points, but you want high No, low fizz points and then high Far East Cup points. So it just gets to this point where I'm just like, even as someone who ski race and then looks so much into it now, I find it confusing. So I did kind of try and describe it, and I think Zach in one of the episodes says like the reason we came to Korea is, it's the same level as Europa Cup. You get a lot of the same, point athletes, but the numbers are so much smaller. So it gives you a better opportunity to do well, to lower your points, get a better bib, going back to the Europa Cups. Because with the Europa Cups, I mean, they're all incredible skiers. They're probably, most of them are under 40 points, and there's fine margins between them. So I think it gives you a bit more of an opportunity heading somewhere like Korea. But yeah, describing that in the episodes, I try to, but at the same time, I don't want it to become like a math problem and for people to be scratching their head going, what the heck is the difference between a Far East and a Europa Cup? So I do and I don't. There's levels to when I think they probably just want to see a race.
Yeah, it's a difficult subject or topic to describe in a simple way. And even for people who are in it, right? Again, it goes back to the emotions and frustrations. My son as a first year FIS, came in 70 something in a race and that was his low points of the year. Whereas he also was a top 30 in a FIS race. And, that was ho hum.
Yeah.
It's really a function of the level of competition that you're racing against, much more so. And so if you have a very deep, and deep, I mean, a lot of very talented athletes, you may come in, way back in the rankings, but actually do well on a points basis.
Yeah, that was funny actually you mentioned that, because there was a video, I think one of the first we did with David last January. He got, I think, second or third at a FIS race. And like to anyone else, you'd be like, oh my God, amazing. But he like scored 10 points above. So we literally left being like, well, that was all right. And I think the title was something like why ski racers don't care about podiums, because it's like, if you don't, it's all about point scoring. So yeah, as you say, you could come 70th, but scoring points is actually, there's an element of being better than a podium, because that's kind of what you're ranked on for your next race. Obviously a podium's lovely. You're never going to complain about a medal and maybe some free Italian food, but yeah, it's funny, the ranking, yeah. It's done in a slightly different way, for sure.
I think it depends, and I don't know if there's a way of, look, the athletes that you're covering at this point are at a different level, but, and I don't know that you're going to go chase after a first-year FIS athlete, but for a first-year, second-year FIS athlete, the expectation shouldn't be getting on the podium. It's about lowering their points and frankly, just getting better, right? Like that's, at the end of the day, that's the most important part. Whereas as you advance, you're a Europa Cup athlete, you're obviously, this is your profession, and you're trying to get to the World Cup and, make something out of it. The highs and lows and sort of the objectives of the athletes are different. And how to document that or tell that story is challenging.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I guess I just jumped in straight away, especially with Molly and Zach this year to Europa Cup. Like Molly did her first Europa Cup the first year we started. So yeah, it's different. It's definitely different. Like, it's not showing, I guess, the journey from and the goals that you have first year FIS, but it's kind of funny in GB, or interesting, I guess. When you're like a GB kid, you only really there's something called the English Championships and the British Championships. There's kind of two big races of the year. There's one in February, one in April, and that's kind of all the British kids who, they might be like at a school club, they might do indoor or dry slope, or they might be part of a full academy and do full seasons. They basically go to these races, and they could be in the top 5 in GB at that time, because it's not like an international based thing. And I think when you get to under 14, under 16, you start doing a little bit of international races, like kid races. And a lot of people, they might be in the top 10 in GB doing these championships, and they go into first year FIS, bib 120, and they're 8 seconds back. And they suddenly go, what? I'm meant to be amazing. I'm meant to be, I'm the best in whatever. So I think there's a lot of, you kind of got to adjust your perspective. I think when you make that transition to first or second year FIS, being like, especially when you're from GB, it's like it's a different kettle of fish. And then you're thrown into Austrian kids who have literally been bred to do this. And I think it's having that perspective of like, okay, the goals here are slightly different to maybe what they were in under 16 or what they would be if you're 4th or 5th year FIS.
Yeah, that story from my well, I'm thinking of this as a parent, I think is worthwhile. And I grew up ski racing too, so I've been through it. But there's always the big fish, small pond, and then you jump out of that that small pond into a bigger pond, and resetting expectations along the whole journey. And I think that'll come through, I'm sure, as Molly, or Zach makes the leap to World Cup, you kind of have to, again, reset expectations. Like what are it's not the podium, it's to make the cut, or to what are the expectations for, that next level. I've seen it again, my son raced in a region that wasn't that competitive and would podium all the time. And then he went to a different, division within a region. And I said, listen, just you need to reset your expectations. You are now going to be top third, top half. That's not on the podium. And, you reset, kind of continue to develop. That's, I think, part of the journey of a ski racer is.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think, you've got to just kind of, change your perspective on that. And I think for Molly and Zach at the moment, I guess last season when I started with Molly, it was she was winning loads of fizz races, getting 23 dead, and was one of the best people on kind of that kind of level. And then you head to Europa Cup and it's suddenly whoa, okay, right, different step. And then you completely adjust your goals. You can't go into Europa Cup being I hope to win, because realistically, some of those athletes have done 30 World Cups or plus. A lot of athletes go and switch between Europa Cup and World Cup. It's not like you're on the Europa Cup team, you're there, you're on the World Cup team, you're there. You could drop down a level, move up a level, do a 50, you know what I mean? Everyone's kind of putting all over the place. So I think for Molly and Zach, it's kind of the next stage would be podiuming or top 10 at Europa Cup. That'd be amazing. And then, as you say, as you get to World Cup, making the top 30, making second run, even becoming 30th would be incredible. And then obviously once you've done that 6 times, you're then going, okay, I want to make the top 15. And you have to adjust it. And I think if you don't do that kind of positively, I think it can just stunt you, because you just kind of get down where it's no, you're jumping in, as you say, to a different pond. You need to adjust it. Yeah.
So let's talk about the audience response, right? It's grown as any content creator, I guess that's what we call ourselves in different media. You grow, you get audience feedback. What has the response been from your audience and people on the hill? So I do recall, people now recognize you on the side of the hill, and they're oh, I'm going to be on YouTube, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
What has the response been, both for those racers that are on the hill and other people who are watching and listening?
Yeah, I guess, when we started, I kind of didn't really have any, expectation of what the response would be. So I just kind of went into it. And then I remember probably getting the first comment, which was oh, this is a really interesting insight into racing. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, people are actually watching this, and there's a bit, people that show more interest. And then I think by January, there was definitely 4 or 5 people who were continuous watchers who would always comment and ask more questions. So I started thinking, oh there's a bit of community kind of growing on YouTube, and the response from the audience. And the thing that the audience, at the start and still now, and they say, my favourite thing is when you break it down and you write those little things on the side, which is brilliant because that's kind of the point of it. But those things take me the absolute longest to figure out what to say, how to say it. And then obviously I handwrite them on my iPad. So it just it's almost I'm so glad you like that, because it's almost what makes it these videos. But also it's almost if people were oh, that text is annoying me, it'd almost be okay, I can cut my time down with editing, but that's not part of it. So I think the biggest response from the audience is, they absolutely love the breakdown of it, seeing the insight to these athletes, which is all the things that I wanted to show. And and doing it, and people compliment doing it through a way that's enjoyable to watch and entertaining and well edited. And I put my all into it. So that's really nice from a perspective of the audience online, having a bit of community. Especially now, there's definitely more of a community of people who comment. And then on the hill, it's been interesting actually. It's quite funny. When I first started in I guess last season, I would go around an inspection with a camera. It's not a massive camera, it's just in my hand. And to be honest, no one would bat an eyelid. They would think I'm a coach. They would just think I might be a photographer at the race. So it was really easy to kind of just like go under the radar. Whereas now, I mean, it's brilliant and people come up to us, but it's like I can definitely tell sometimes, especially if I do like a race in Europe and I've got the camera inspection, I do get some looks or some points, or someone will come up to me and be like, oh, can I be in it for, say hi or whatever, a wave, which is great. And it's nice to have that response, but it has definitely made me, I don't know if it's self-conscious, but definitely made me more of aware of like, they actually might watch that or know what that is. And then, but people, yeah, it's so great. When people come up to us in person, it's my absolute favourite, because also you get the response and like, they might come up and say, oh, we love the videos. I'm like, okay, that's great. And and the main thing I ask is like, what do you want to see more of? Like, what is the stuff that interests you? What size of it do you want to see more of, less of? Because in the end, like I'm making it for an audience. I want to know what's interesting and not. And I only know from my perspective and Molly and Zach's and David. So yeah, it's funny when people come up to us, but it's great. It's brilliant with it.
It looks fun. You're obviously less or you're more conspicuous these days on the side of the hill than perhaps in the past season. When you and as far as your goals at the outset with respect to bringing more awareness and helping fundraise, like, has it helped in those regards as well? Like, aside from maybe hopefully paying some of your bills, has it helped David, receive any sponsorship or at least assistance with respect to his, ski racing entry fees and the like? And I guess, for Molly and Zach, they may have, again, given they're already on Team GB, what are their objectives to the extent that they have any, as being a part of the program?
So that was kind of my intention starting off, was to bring it so people didn't have to worry so much about picking races and funding and travel and all of this. And like over the last year, I mean, last season it was 100% fully funded by me, self-funded. I had zero help, no one all season, I didn't have anyone reach out and think, oh, could we sponsor this or do that? So last season was fully me. I worked as a food delivery driver in Brighton in the UK where I live, and it's very hilly, and I didn't have an electric bike, and I'd literally edit and do meetings all day, and then from 4 till 8 I would jump on my bike and earn money doing that. So I just worked from May till November, pretty much on my bike, the season before, just to get money to do it. And I did it like the most budget way you could possibly run a season. Secondhand cameras, like everything was on a budget. And then when I ended last year, I was like, okay, I really need to focus on bringing in sponsorship and trying to bring in interest. And I guess it's like when you see, I mean, by the end, I can't remember how many subscribers we had, probably like 2,000 or 3,000 at the end of last season. I was like, surely there's one person out of these 3,000 people who might be interested in sponsoring it. And then actually the response from last season, in the summer, I was reached out by a couple of opportunities for me to do videography for other things. So I did some videography for the Paralympics for the visually impaired skiers. Did that in the summer. We got reached out by a British academy called Kandahar to do some coaching from the videos. Another ski club reached out and said, could you do some videography? We're working with Maison Sport to do some sponsorship videos. Yeah, definitely there's been a lot of positive response, whereas this year I'm being kind of funded. I wouldn't say they're funding my project solely. It's almost like they're like, oh, could you do this job? We've seen your videography, we like it. Could you do this? And in turn, that funds what I do. So yeah, in a sense, I guess I probably benefited from doing other videography jobs. Whereas for David, he got the opportunity as well to do coaching with Kandahar. So we've done that this season. But for Molly and Zach, they have like some of their own like solo sponsors that reach out through sport. But yeah, for them, it's not easy, and it costs so much to do a ski season at that level. When you're self-funded like they are, it's not an easy thing to keep doing. And especially when the Europa Cups go from Sweden to France to Austria to all these places. So yeah, I guess there has been success in terms of kind of funding and sponsorship, but in a different, kind of route. But the thing that would be amazing if I could put 100% of my time on this project, someone backs it, and then at the same time they back Molly and Zach at the moment, and maybe David Ski Cross. But you know what I mean? That would be amazing, because it could just be a 100% thing. Whereas now, this season, I'm obviously 100% doing full liners, but I'm so semi-distracted by other little editing jobs to make me do it that I can't. It's almost like now I can't. It's like 70%, and I want to just be like, this is what I do every day. Whereas now I go, oh, I need to edit for this, and I need to make sure I've sent this and do that and whatever. So yeah, I mean, in a way it has, but I mean, the dream goal would just somebody be like, right, this project, let's sponsor it to the Olympics for all of us. That would be amazing, but it's not an easy thing to ask.
No, that's a big ticket. But
yeah.
For Molly and Zach, who have effectively a professional, Europa Cup, World Cup level path ahead of them, they're going to get sponsorships, whether it's a head sponsor, i.e. someone's going to slap a label, sticker on their helmet to advertise, Uber Eats, or whatever the case may be. And the fact that they're on your show just gives them more visibility, which adds value to that sponsorship. So I think they'll have some unintended benefits, probably, because it's not just the BBC's cameras at a World Cup race, or I don't know if BBC covers it, but I know it's not Eurosport anymore; it's been rebranded. But that kind of that visibility will be enhanced by the visibility that you're providing them. And so, I think they'll probably be able to command more for those sponsorships than they otherwise would. But obviously, I would say, hopefully, you can continue and do this without having to. Although I got to say, the delivery on a bicycle, a non-e-bike, is got to be great for your stamina and your health, right?
Yeah, I got really fit. It was brilliant. Like, I didn't mind it, and also because I'm sitting at a desk all day, it gave me another reason to get outside and exercise and earn a bit of money. So, out of all the jobs I could have done, it worked really well. But I hope for Molly and Zach there's loads of benefits, and that is my main goal, is to obviously, like, it's a great thing for me to do, but I want to help these athletes because I know what it was like. I was never their level, but I have an idea what it's like and how hard it is and the sacrifice. So it'd be amazing, and I hope through Full Liners companies can realise the reach that we actually get now, or on Instagram or YouTube, that we could do some stuff and help brands. But it's convincing them that, you're not signing up to sponsor these athletes right now. I mean, you are, but it's almost like, it's like if you want to be and back them when they get to the Olympics, because realistically, if they keep going on this path, they'll be selected for 2030. You can be the brand that was there from 2026, rather than in 2029 when they might have done really well and there's a million brands coming at them, but you could have been there from the start, been on Full Liners and kind of been through this journey with us, which gives you more credibility. So that's kind of what I try to sell to brands when I try and get sponsorship for all of us. I try and say, like, it's kind of like a 5-year plan. Like, right. You might not feel the benefits now, but like, it'd be amazing if they did some incredible things and you've been there from the beginning. Whereas you jump on ship when they've got Europa Cup podium, and then so's every other brand.
Yeah. It's the same with respect to U.S. athletes as well. Sometimes they'll put a sticker on their helmet with a big question mark because they're like, hey, who wants this space, basically.
Yeah, the best one I saw, I can't remember who it was, but it had sponsored by mum and dad or something on the back, and I love that because a lot of the time that's true for a lot of athletes. It's not that you don't get paid.
I have been that sponsor.
There you go. You know what it's like.
Exactly. So speaking of the future, what is coming up? You're back from Korea. Those are the latest episodes currently up on YouTube. What is the plan for the remainder of the season? And I think when we spoke initially, look, we both cover skiing, ski racing, or just skiing more broadly. There's a natural season, start and stop, generally speaking. Now, ski racers obviously try and train during the summer, but there is a natural sort of break. So what is the future for this season and the break and the seasons in the future?
Yeah. So for now, we got back from South Korea probably like 2 weeks ago now. Feels longer, but 2 weeks ago. We went there the end and start of Feb. And now going forward, we have World Juniors, which I think is in 9 days from now in Norway. Molly and Zach are competing in the GS and slalom and the team parallel. which should be an amazing event to follow, obviously. And obviously World Juniors, you have to be under 21, so there's only so many years they can compete in it. And I have the full intention of going, but this morning I did look at prices, and I've been, what's the word? Humbled. I've been like, wow, Norway is not a cheap place. I think it's going to cost more than it did going to South Korea for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so South Korea ended, I mean, we got some super, me and my friend Gabe came along, but we got some really cheap flights out there. And then once you're in South Korea, everything that for us, we found very budget, but we made it work for a really good price. So I looked into Norway thinking, oh, it's only 6 days, it won't be too bad. And I've suddenly been like, oh. But part of the journey and following it, I mean, that's how committed, I mean, I'm so committed to it that I'm like, all right, you know, all the money I've earned from filming with the Paralympics or coaching, I'm just going to go for it, because I think you can't, when you do these sort of projects, you can't have a foot half in it. You got to jump in, otherwise people need to be committed, and they want you to be committed. So I probably will go. I'll book it this afternoon. So Norway coming up would be amazing. We've got how many events? Team Parallel, GS and slalom for both Molly and Zach. So that would be like 6 different videos, and that, I mean, I try and release a video every 3 days. So that actually, you think about it, that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 days of content, which will take us to probably, you know, mid to end of March. And I've still got 2 or 3 career episodes. So you got to kind of structure your season and think like, okay, how many days? You don't want to keep posting in June from the races they did in February. So I've got to figure that out. So we've got Norway, and then there's the Europa Cup finals coming up. But you have to make, I can't remember what it is. I think it's top 40 or top 45. To compete in it, and I don't think they've quite made that, so I don't know if they're going to that event. And then in April there's some races in Val d'Isère in France they're doing, so I'll probably do Norway, April Val d'Isère, and that will kind of be their end of season races, so kind of 2 more sections of the season, because we're already in March really. And then in terms of the break, I mean, when you get to, you know, Europa Cup level, you don't actually have that long off. They start going in end of May, whereas when you're like first or second year Fizz or under 16, you might not start again till June, July. So it's definitely sped up a bit. So I guess in May they might head somewhere, definitely in June. I'm sure they'll probably go to Ladies Out, they did last season. And I think a big goal for both Molly and Zach is going to Southern Hemisphere, Chile or Argentina or New Zealand, to do those races and get that training, because I think they both feel when they start the season, they're almost 10 steps back from those athletes who can kind of continue competing. So that's a big goal for them, but that also completely depends on sponsorship, because it's obviously not cheap, and especially getting all their kit down there. I mean, they'll probably have, you know, 4 pairs of slalom, 4 pairs of GS, tuning kit, multiple boots, helmets, poles, the list goes on. So it's not a cheap thing. So that would be a big goal for them, and I was talking to them a couple of days ago, would be to, you know, head to New Zealand, but that depends on funding. And obviously it'd be incredible to be able to go and film that kind of experience, but once again, that would cost a lot. So that's kind of the goal, I guess, until August time. It's kind of like, we'll keep going, but it also does, to be honest, depend on sponsorships between like April and June in terms of it, because there's only so long you can kind of keep going and burning the candle, whatever. So hopefully someone will jump on board for next season and realise kind of what the story is and be interested in it. So we'll see, but that is the kind of plan, I would say, till August, and then hopefully Molly and Zach next season will start their first World Cups, and we can document that, because that'd be a really cool change in the series.
Well, hopefully for the World Juniors, you have media credentials, so you don't have to bribe security guards.
Yeah. No, I just got a confirmation yesterday from GB saying I've got a media pass, which is like music to my ears. So yeah, I won't be having to jump over barriers this time.
And the same goes for the World Cups next year as well.
Yeah, I think, the World Cups, I think, I don't think I'll be allowed in. I think sometimes I get by, the camera's almost a ticket to get in places. People see a big camera with a microphone and they're like, oh, you must be semi-important to be somewhere. So I kind of use that as my ticket. I just hold it up and see if someone lets me in. But yeah, next year for the World Cups, I'm going to have to really get the emails going and figure out what I can not film as well, because there's definitely going to be things that's, you know, areas you can't film, or you might only be able to, even for World Champs last year actually, I was talking with GB and I could only use, I think it was 60 seconds of the actual footage they had of the race. So you have to make sure, or was it 45? But you have to basically make sure that you're in the range of what's allowed. So it's interesting.
Yeah, there's all sorts of rules around that, which is a whole nother episode of Fresh Corduroy.
What I can and not film.
Yes. Well, listen, this is great. Like, I guess it sounds like you're having fun doing it, which is also a nice thing. You get to chase around people on the slopes. You don't necessarily have the pressures of standing in the start gate and having the butterflies or the nerves. But you're there to document it, and from an audience perspective, person's perspective, that would be me. I enjoy it. It's fun to watch.
Thank you.
I think one anecdotal piece of information is I'm on a group chat with or text string with a group of friends, all of whom had children, in a race program at one point or another. And they were listening to the Olympic coverage, and they were talking about the bananas.
Yeah.
And one of them was like, I didn't know that we referred to those as bananas. They knew them as, here in the U.S., it's a delay or an undergate is typically what they're referred to as. But I because of you, I knew full well that they're also known as bananas.
That is funny. Yeah, some people, a lot of people here call them delays, but a lot of people also call them bananas. And it must come from like being a kid and it being like a banana. But yeah, no, bananas are kind of, yeah, it's a thing.
Yes. But it's nice and that you are demystifying the sport of ski racing to the masses.
I hope so in some level.
Well, Elsa, this has been fantastic. I enjoy the conversation. I wish you the best, and I wish obviously David and Molly and Zach the best for the remainder of the season. And I'm looking forward to season 3, I guess.
Yeah, it is
next year.
Yeah, crazy. It feels like time's flying. But yeah, great to talk to you as well.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about you want to plug? I mentioned that should mention the hat that you're wearing. It's a Fall Liners merch.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're interested in some beanies, I made some last summer to try and support the production of it, which has been great. So if you need a hat, check out Fall Liners beanies. There's a couple colours I think left. Green's sold out. I know that for sure, but there's a couple of the others. Okay,
terrific. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
That's my conversation with Elsa Powell. If you haven't already, check out Fall Liners on YouTube to see the stories we discussed, the races, the travel, and the reality of chasing Europa Cup and World Cup starts from outside the traditional Alpine powerhouses. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Fresh Corduroy on your preferred podcast platform and share it with someone who appreciates ski racing and the stories behind it. Fresh Corduroy's theme music is by Eric Zolan from his album Calder's Universe. Thanks for listening.